Welcome, everybody, and welcome Dan Vallimont. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Joe. Thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to be here for the inaugural podcast.
Man, thank you for being on episode 1. This is really exciting for Fanatic Wrestling, and I knew I wanted to have you on because you're somebody that does a really good job of promoting yourself and putting yourself out there with Fanatics, which we really appreciate. And you're somebody that I think exemplifies the brand well because you're somebody who's really committed to wrestling, growing wrestling, and somebody who is really involved with teaching and coaching the sport, and we appreciate all those things. And so I knew I wanted to have you on. Also, you're a great guy. What's going on, Dan? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Just going day to day with everything going on in the world and getting used to being quarantined.
Yeah, we're in the middle of quarantine. Really, really sucks. But we're figuring it out. I think that people are coming together, which is a nice thing. So if I could intro you a little bit here, Dan, just to, for people who are listening, two-time Division I All-American, 2010 NCAA Finalist at Penn State, where you were a 2-year captain for the Nittany Lions, which we're definitely going to get into. You're a 5-time U.S. Open place winner at the senior level. You're a 2013 World Cup team member. You took a bronze medal there. You were a Division I coach for 5 years at Hofstra, where you guys won 2 team conference championships, which is super exciting. You wrestled at the 2016 Olympic trials. You're a 2-time New Jersey state champion. Your final 2 years, you were 78-0, which means the first question that I have to ask, because it's one of the most important questions in wrestling that I see on Twitter all the time. Are you a pork roll or a Taylor ham guy? Where do you fall on this very important divide?
Yeah, it's a very important question in Jersey. So, it is only called Taylor ham where I'm from. So that's the end of the discussion from where I'm from up in North Jersey.
Man, 78-0 speaks for itself. That should kind of be what decides it in Jersey for that year. You know what I mean? Like, get together all the Jersey state champs and whatever, like, the majority agrees, like, until the next calendar year, until the next state tournament, like, that's what it is.
Yeah, there was a couple others from North Jersey, so they might agree with me. I don't remember how many we had from North and South Jersey, but living in Philly, I get pork roll a lot down here. That's what they say down here. So, topic of a lot of arguments.
I feel like that would that's the only thing that could make the New Jersey State Championship like even more intense. You know what I mean? It's like suddenly there's like even that's on top of it, and you have to win. And currently you're training at the Penn RTC with Coach Brandon Slay, and I kind of wanted to start there and start getting into that. Coach Slay is Olympic champion in his own right. Had a fantastic senior level career, but he's had a fantastic coaching career. I think that was best exemplified with his time with the junior team and the age groups and how he created like a ton of world champions throughout that system. What's it like training at the Penn RTC with Coach Slay?
It's been great. I made the decision in 2016 after the Olympic trials to I kind of had to make a decision between if I wanted to continue to coach wrestling or if I wanted to compete, because up until then I was kind of one foot in competing and one foot in coaching. And I think both sides of that suffered a little bit. And right after the 2016 trials, I got a phone call from Slay saying that he was moving to Philadelphia and going to be heading the PRTC, and said he was interested in me coming down there to train full time. And it was, I don't know, it just seemed like it was the perfect timing for it, just because I really had felt before he even called me that I needed to make that decision. Am I going to hang it up competitively and just focus on coaching, or am I going to take a real chance here to maximize my ability as a freestyle wrestler over the next 4 years? And so, yeah, I made the decision. Me and my wife moved down to Philly, and I've been training with Brandon and the PRTC since 2016, and it's really been great. Obviously, Brandon has a wealth of knowledge from his own competitive career, and also, as you mentioned, with the junior team, a ton of success with those guys, multiple world champions. And I don't know, he just knows so much, and he's also connected to a lot of people who know a lot as well through USA Wrestling. So just being able to be around him on a daily basis and be around some of the people that he was teammates with or people that were mentors to him, and just kind of soak in the wisdom from those guys, it's just really been great.
Man, I believe it. What's something that Coach Slay does a little bit different, or the Penn RTC does a little bit different that maybe you weren't used to coming in? Maybe something that you really like, or maybe something that, you really had to like adjust or struggle to get on board with. Is there anything like that?
Well, honestly, everything was kind of new to me because I had never been a part of an RTC. When I was coaching at Hofstra, I was the only guy training, so I didn't have anybody. I mean, I'm in my mid-20s, late 20s at the time, just kind of putting my own workouts together and really just coaching myself. I didn't really have any of that, having that structure. And I mean, I'm sure all the RTCs have their own kind of practice plans and routine, but to me, it was brand new at the time. I hadn't had that since I was in college. So it was really great to have that. And then at the same time, we had BJ Futrell, Chase Pammy, and Richard Perry and in as my teammates there. And I think something that they did that was kind of unique to, and I might not be correct here, but from what I understand, I mean, just the closeness of our RTC, just meeting outside of the wrestling room as a team and with our coaching, with Coach Slay, to talk about things outside of wrestling. And we had like a group Bible study. We meet for lunch. We do a lot of things outside of wrestling and talk about things that are more important in life than wrestling, which is pretty cool. And I guess I would consider it unique.
It is pretty unique. And there's a ton in there that I would like to unpack a little bit more. It's so cool seeing the way all these RTCs are starting to take on like their own identities. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of colleges kind of have their own identities, but I feel like the NJRTC and the Penn RTC are two, they're very, very different places. And it's kind of cool seeing athletes find a group that they click in with. You know what I mean? I think that's something that maybe in 2010 when you were coming out, do you feel like RTCs were as big of a thing, or how have you kind of seen the RTC expansion as an athlete? Can you take me through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, they were a brand new thing in 2010, right when I graduated from Penn State. We had the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, which I remained on for a year there right after I had graduated while I was planning on going to grad school. It was before I'd been hired at Hofstra. And as far as I knew, that was like really the only opportunity outside of Sunkist Kids or the New York Athletic Club. They didn't have Titan Mercury back then. And like Sunkist Kids didn't really have a location. And the New York Athletic Club, although they have the club in New York City, they didn't have guys that like lived there and trained there. So as far as I knew, Penn State was like the only one like that. And there could have been a few others, but it was a lot different then. There wasn't as many opportunities. And I wish there had been. I mean, I probably would have stayed at Penn State anyway, but just for the growth of wrestling in the United States and at a world level, I think these RTCs and just the growth of them and most big Division I schools having one now, I just think it's huge for the programs. It increases the level of wrestling at all levels because you have younger kids, high school qualified athletes coming in and training in the summertime. It's making them a lot better. Then you have the senior level guys training with the college guys. And for the senior guys to have partners all the time, it's just, it's good for everybody and it's great for USA Wrestling.
I really, really like to hear that. I was also interested, you were talking about splitting your time training between having this job as a coach at Hofstra and were you assistant coach? Was that your role there?
Yeah, my first 3 years, I was the second assistant, and then my last 2 years there, I was the head assistant.
Awesome. But then having to split that with training for the 2016 Olympic trials and still placing at the US Open, 5 times, that's a really difficult balance, having to take coaching, which is not just a full-time job, it's a full life job. The college wrestling coaches are really, it has to be a very dedicated job. And then to add that training on top of it, how difficult was that? Can you kind of take me through that time?
Yeah, it was definitely tough to manage. And I mean, thankfully the freestyle competitions there's only a few of them a year. So I would only find like every couple months, normally I would just continue doing my normal coaching. And I mean, I would wrestle with the guys every day anyway, even if I wasn't competing. And I just found it more difficult when I got close to a competition when I needed to kind of focus on freestyle stuff. And the college guys are in the middle of folk style season and they have to be my priority. That's my job. So really trying to manage that time where I'm making sure I'm taking care of them first, but then also finding time to train freestyle and work on my parterre and work on getting my weight down and doing all these other things that kind of have to come second in that situation. But just managing it, I guess. And as time went on, I feel like I got better at it and got used to it. But it was definitely difficult during the college season specifically. Once you got out of that and you had the U.S. Open is after the college season and all the college guys are training freestyle, it was a little bit easier then because we were kind of training together. And even though I'm still a coach, I'm in there training with them, and we were all getting better together. So it was a little bit easier outside of the college season, but in season it was tougher.
That's always so funny to me that I don't know that there's many sports where the coach kind of like gets in there and has to like do the sport with you. And it really is needed. You know, you need the coaches to be able to, you know, at least some of them to be able to put their hands on the athletes and give them certain looks. And I just think that's something like you would never see that like at a football practice, you know what I mean? Or anything like that.
Yeah.
That would be so impossible. So speaking about your training, so what really interests me about wrestling, or I think the first thing that interests like most people about wrestling, it's not necessarily like the rivalries or like the drama or the storylines or anything. It's the wrestling and the technical improvements and, you know, how many ways can you do this move and what's the best way to do these moves. That's what drew me to my job at Fanatic Wrestling is technique. That's what I love the most. How have you seen yourself improve or evolve as a senior athlete with so much experience? You know, you're somebody that came out of college in 2010. You've had the chance to train under some, you know, multiple Olympic champions. What makes you different than yourself just out of college?
So I would say coming out of college, I really didn't have much freestyle experience. I never competed in a freestyle tournament while in college. And the only tournament I competed in freestyle before college was the New Jersey State freestyle tournament my junior year, just because, and the only reason I did it was because I was told it was good for recruiting the coaches like that. Mm-hmm. But I also played soccer in high school, and our summer camp interfered with Fargo, and I was a captain, and I just didn't go to Fargo because of that. I probably should have, but I didn't. And so I was very raw with freestyle. I just didn't know much. The rules, I didn't fully understand what was going on. And that was the case up until I started wrestling. My first tournament within Nittany Lion Wrestling Club was the NYAC in the fall of 2010. And I'll be honest, I didn't fully know what I was doing. I just knew, like, hey, I'm pretty good on my feet. Hopefully I don't get taken down because I don't really know what to do once I get on the mat.
Man, I understand that feeling. To tell you a little personal story, last year I went to Uruguay for a jiu-jitsu tournament. I also compete a lot in jiu-jitsu around the world and stuff. And the first day I did the jiu-jitsu tournament, the second day I showed up, and it was this like combat sambo thing where they were like doing jiu-jitsu but also like punching each other in the head. And my coach came up to me, he's like, "Hey, I signed you up for that." And I was like, "Oh, how do you win?" He's like, "Oh, I don't really know." He just threw me out there. And so, yeah, I have a little bit of an understanding of how that feels.
That sounds more terrifying than me going into a freestyle tournament, though.
it wasn't the most fun. So is that something you wish that you had a lot more exposure to as a kid? Because I know, you know, for me as a kid growing up wrestling, like, you know, there just wasn't that many, you know, chances to even learn freestyle, let alone go and do like a tournament. Is that something you wish you had a lot more, you know, exposure to early on?
Yeah. Looking back, I wish I would have taken more advantage of it. We did have a club really close to where I was at and where I lived in my hometown that I went to a few of their practices, but I never went to any of the tournaments or anything. And which was weird because I went to a ton of off-season tournaments in folk style. I don't know if maybe I was just intimidated by freestyle or what it was. But I had gone to a couple practices just because the good training partners were there and we did a lot of neutral wrestling. So it really wasn't because I wanted to be good at freestyle at the time. But yeah, I mean, I would have, looking back now, knowing that I'd be 33 years old and wrestling freestyle for a living, probably would have been beneficial to start a little younger.
Fair enough. So we were talking a little bit about yourself technically. How much do you find that the takedown game changes between freestyle and folk style? Do you think it's pretty, you know, a single leg's a single leg, or are things really changing around there?
I mean, a single leg's still a single leg. You just have to really focus on one, just having really great positioning. If, for example, you're saying on a single leg, if your head's down and your hips are out on your single leg, guy's going to kind of hang over the top and look to chest lock you or head pinch you or crotch throw you. And you're just really putting yourself in a not good position. And you can get away with that in folk style because you can scramble a little bit. But in freestyle, you make that mistake a couple times, you'll pay for it. And so first thing is just making sure you're in good position. The second thing is you got to finish a lot faster. And so that's why a lot of coaches preach that, hey, do freestyle even if you don't want to compete, because it's going to make you better at finishing. Just because you need to finish a lot cleaner. Your technique has to be very good, and it needs to be a lot faster.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's while we're talking about technique, let's take a second. Let's talk about some of the products that you have on fanaticwrestling.com. You were actually one of our first products, the Russian Thai Formula, which is a fantastic series all about, your 2-on-1. You show some great crackdown stuff in there. Is the 2-on-1 like one of your favorite places to score out of?
Yeah, over the past few years, actually, in college some too. The 2-on-1 became one of my highest percentage control ties. So control tie, collar tie, underhook, inside tie, 2-on-1, etc. there. But yeah, I just somehow kind of gravitated towards it and just started having a lot of success getting that 2-on-1 and opening up a lot of different offense. And I don't know, throughout the years, I've just kind of added a few things here and there and fine-tuned things with it. And yeah, it's one of my my go-tos now.
I believe it. There's some really, really good stuff on there. I still use that fireman's carry that you have in there, when I'm training and wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu. You have a couple others on the site. You're one of our guys who has multiple products, so I'd like to be able to touch on all these. You have the recent series that we just launched, Next Level Defensive Fundamentals. You've been talking about positioning. You've been talking about how people have to score so much, you have to finish so much quicker if you're in freestyle. Tell me a little bit about how defensive work and focusing on your counters and stuff can make you a much more a much better wrestler. I see so many people, they want to go out, they want to practice like singles, doubles, but they don't always spend as much time on the defense. What do you say about that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that's the first thing I would say. Like, teaching defense is definitely, it's not fun. It's not fun to drill. It's, it doesn't get much credit. I consider myself an offensive wrestler. I don't like focusing so much on defense, but you have to, because it's a key part. I mean, if you're letting a guy in on your legs all the time, that's going to be a problem. So yeah, that instructional course, it focuses on just a lot of positioning stuff, really basic fundamental positioning from using your head, your hands, and your hips to kind of stop a guy's attacks. And then the majority of it focuses on when a guy's in on a single or a high crotch and being able to defend from there. It's also folk style and freestyle based for a lot of it. So there's stuff that it'll work in freestyle and folk style as well. So it's not limited to one or the other. But yeah, a lot of different stuff in there that I use on a daily basis. And I try to start out with the more fundamental high percentage stuff that you'll see at the World Championships in nearly every match. And then also throw in some other options that are not necessarily desperation, but maybe lower percentage and things that, hey, if this isn't working, I'll go to this. The ones that are probably more fun to drill, but yeah. I mean, the higher percentage stuff, it might be a little bit more boring, but it works.
Man, what's dinner without a little dessert? Throw a little bit of fun in there. That's something I think there's some wrestling coaches that, they just want to work on the baseline stuff. That's definitely going to work. But I think there's definitely a little bit of value in having a little, something a little flashier that the guys can get excited about. And I think it's a great defensive series. And then we have one that's coming out soon, Clearing Ties and Creating Action by Dan Vallimont. This one's a little bit more hand fighting and how to make sure that, the guy's not able to control you with, some of the control ties you were talking about earlier. Can you tell me about that series that we have coming out soon on Fanatics?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one just because I start out, like you mentioned there, kind of going over hand fighting. And that's something that I wish I would have learned a little better when I was younger. And nobody really ever taught hand fighting when I was younger. And it was just something you kind of figured out wrestling in the Big Ten. I mean, you're going to wrestle guys from Iowa. They're going to hand fight with you and you just figure it out. But I don't know. Especially working with Coach Slay over the past few years, we've really broken down some really practical steps in how to create motion and how to hand fight. And I go over that in the video there. And I think it's extremely important just to understand what you're doing with your hands when you're trying to control somebody. And because a lot of people think hand fighting is just going in and just getting like kind of wild with your hands and just clubbing the guy as hard as you can. But there is a method behind the madness there, and you want to really make sure every motion's with a purpose and trying to create a reaction from your opponent. So I focus on that at the beginning, but then we also get into, if your opponent gets controlled tie on you, different ways to clear out of there, and not just to clear out of the tie, but ways to turn that tie up into offense. So if somebody has an underhook on you, not just clearing out of the underhook and just getting away, but clearing the underhook right into an offensive attack, and really teaching some chain wrestling, I guess, ideas there.
Concepts, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Concepts. There you go.
It's sort of my job to come up with a lot of words.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of fundamentals, concepts,
for
ideas. Man, I can just go off. That's really interesting. I think that's so true what you said about hand fighting, because that's kind of what I see whenever like an athlete graduates to a new level, middle school going to high school going to college going to even senior level and the international level. I see there's always like a little lag in the hand fighting. There's a couple areas like bottom wrestling and hand fighting, I think, is a big one, where they just sort of have to, get used to the speed of it, but the technique of it and the efficiency of it, and the way these guys are able to go. And I think that's a great series that can kind of teach some of that hidden connective tissue between techniques. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That the best guys are so good at. You've talked about wrestling in the Big Ten. You just mentioned it. And you've talked about training at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. You were a 2-year team captain at Penn State University. You wrestled under both Troy Sunderland and Cael Sanderson, correct? You bridged that era?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, you were one of those guys. And then what was it like training under Cael Sanderson?
So that's a question I get a lot. I mean,
I can imagine.
Yeah, and it's
well, he won't tell us. Somebody needs to.
Yeah, it's true. He's a man of few words. But I don't know. So like right when he came in, it was
let's talk about that. Yeah, what was it like when he first came in?
It was so Sunderland and his coaching staff we knew they were going to be replaced, and at the time, I mean, it was disappointing because I had a close relationship with that whole staff, and we didn't know who we were going to get. We definitely didn't know we were getting Cael. But a few months after, or whenever they ended up making the hire, it was in the spring it was the end of the school year of my junior year, and the rumors started going around that it was going to be Cael. And we're like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's just a rumor. And social media wasn't as prevalent, so I'm sure if we would have had Twitter back then, it would have found out way sooner. But yeah, once we found out that he was the coach, it was a couple weeks later. He came in and we had I don't know, he spoke to the team, introduced himself, and at that point, I would say it was still like, for me, feeling almost a little starstruck. Like, wow, it's Cael Sanderson. Like, he's our coach now, which at the time it just seemed crazy. And then I don't know, once we started working out and we worked summer camps with Penn State, and he was the guy running them, so we got to kind of know him a little bit over the summer. And then once the season hit, it just kind of felt more routine. It wasn't like every day, like, oh, it's Cael Sanderson. Like, no, we're here, we're a team, we're just working to get better. And I don't know, I think a lot of my teammates would agree with that. But the one thing I did notice that was different in the room is Cael's just attitude of really promoting an environment of having fun and making the goal to really truly enjoy wrestling. And I don't know if I fully understood that or not. I liked the idea of it. And like, you have a fun wrestling. I mean, wrestling's hard, and there's not much that you could say is fun about going in the wrestling room and getting smashed in the head a few times, thrown on the ground, and get bloodied up. And that doesn't sound fun. But being able to
a lot of people, it's a punishment.
Yeah, especially if you're not a starter and you're like a walk-on per se, and like you say that you go into the room and you just get beat up every day, like that from the outside can't seem fun. But he did a really good job of just helping each person. He wanted us to define why we wrestled, and he would ask us questions like that would really make us kind of search for that answer for ourselves. And if the guys that came to that answer and realized they love wrestling, the room became a lot happier, for lack of a better word, place. And the guys in the room are no longer trying to prove anything to each other. You're able to just kind of wrestle free. You're not afraid if you make a mistake. You just go in and wrestle. And I think that attitude really enables you to wrestle a lot freer and just open up and be able to maximize your ability rather than holding back because you're afraid to mess up. And that in turn transitions into live competition on the mat, where you're not afraid of losing. You're not afraid of making a mistake or living up to somebody else's expectations, where you can just go out and just truly enjoy the opportunity you have to compete. And so I think he and his staff did a really good job with that. Him, Cody, Casey.
Man, that's really, really fascinating. That whole, I'm just trying to absorb that as much as possible. You also, at the very end, you mentioned, his staff has been there pretty much Cael's whole run. There really hasn't been any staff turnover now that I think about it. Mm-hmm. He's been pretty consistent about the people he brought in, he has stayed with.
Yeah. Yeah. They coached with him. I mean, Cody's his brother, and Casey was with him.
Pretty easy hire, yeah.
Yeah. It would just it's a hard not hire.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit harder to get rid of him.
Yeah.
On top of that.
I don't know what Thanksgiving dinner looks like if you let him go, but yeah, I mean, Casey came with him as well from over at Iowa State, and they just seem to work well together. They all understand each other, and they all have the same mission, and they just all they just work so well together, because there's no as far as their core beliefs and what makes a successful program, I think that they're all on the same page. And I'm sure they disagree about small things here and there, which is good. You can't expect everybody to always agree with every single thing you're doing, but the big things, I think they're all on the same page. And I mean, it's obviously they've done pretty well. So
yeah, exactly. The results kind of go to prove that it's doing okay.
Yeah.
So I've heard that your college training experience personally was a little bit different because you had I think I heard this on the Rudis podcast. They were talking about how, because of a really difficult major you had, your training schedule had to be a little bit different. Can you kind of tell me about that?
Yeah. So my senior year, I had a 5-year undergrad program in architectural engineering, and I had to do an undergraduate thesis that met every day. My senior year is a full year course from like 2 to 5, and it didn't always go the full time. And I think our practice was at like 2:30. So I didn't know what days I was going to need to be there in the whole time or not. So we just kind of scheduled my practices in the morning for the majority of the year. And there'd be some days I knew I wasn't going to have to go to my thesis class, where I could come in and go to the regular scheduled practice. But yeah, it was a little different because I basically had one-on-one workouts my entire senior year in the morning. And then when I got done with practice, I would do my lift as the guys were finishing up their practice. So I was kind of reversed of them. But I would have Casey or Cael or Cody come in, and they would put me through a workout, or Troy Letters, who was on staff at the time. And those guys would put me through the workout, and they would bring in a partner for me. Or sometimes Casey wrestled with me a lot, and Letters wrestled with me a lot as well. But yeah, they would bring in guys like David Taylor and Ed Ruth and Cael Sanderson and Molinaro. Those guys were all on the team at the time. So, I mean, they would bring me in and put me through one-on-one practices. And at the time, it's just like, you love being in the room with your whole team.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you're like slacking off, but you definitely can't slack off when you're the only 2 people working out with a coach watching over you. So ultimately, I think it was a good thing for my career, because like I said, I got that one-on-one treatment all season. And despite it being hard from a point where like I wasn't with my teammates as often, I think there was a lot of benefit to it.
Man, obviously, and the results show themselves. I think you placed third at the Big Ten tournament that year, and then you're in the finals at nationals. I mean, that was, an unbelievable run. So I think that that's really something that you took, that thing that I think a lot of people might have seen that as a big disadvantage, but you turned it into something positive. And I think that's that's a great finish to that. You know what I mean? That's kind of a great arc. Cael was you mentioned how Cael talked about your reasons for wrestling and staying positive and kind of challenging you in those different ways. Do you remember any examples of Cael trying to like make it fun with you personally, or like any like personal interaction you had around that?
With me personally, I mean, again, I guess I didn't really mention, but Cunningham was the guy I was with most of the time, just because he was my size.
Gotcha.
And Cael and I had a few talks. Honestly, we've had more.
I thought Casey Cunningham was bigger than that.
No, I mean, I was 165. He was right around my size during then.
I've never seen him in person. I swear I thought he was like 200 pounds or something.
No, don't let him hear that. I don't know. He might not like that.
No, I thought he was like jacked. I thought he was like taller and stuff.
No, he is.
Well, I mostly just see him in like a corner or something, you know, bent over yelling instructions. I never put it together. It's funny to me. Sorry.
No. Him and it's funny because him and Cael still work out all the time, and they joke around with each other and kind of trash talk each other, kind of at the same time motivating each other to keep working. You'd think they're both still training. It's funny. Like, I don't know if they still do it, but up to a few years ago, I would still go up and train with them every now and then. And Casey and Cael would wrestle after practice over, just like it'd start like sparring, and then they would be wrestling for like an hour, just rolling around the mat. And it looked like they were just play wrestling and fooling around. And then somebody would end up getting up all mad and angry about something. So like, apparently at some point it got somewhat competitive, and that's just the kind of people they are. And then like that in itself is fun. I mean, practice is over for an hour and the team's sitting around watching these two roll around when neither one of them's competing. They just
that's why they're competing, because all their guys are suddenly watching, and
well, they just like enjoy making everything a competition and in a fun way too. Mm-hmm. So it's again that lightheartedness where yes, it's serious, like you want to win, but there's a fun aspect to it too. And I don't know, Cael helped me to realize that maybe indirectly, not actually speaking it directly to me, that wrestling is at the end of the day a game, and we get an opportunity to play this game. And yes, you will win or lose. That's going to happen. But at the end of the day, we get to play a game, and that's awesome. Games are fun, and let's try to make it fun. You have this limited amount of times that you get to go compete, especially like he would talk about things like the Big Ten tournament or NCAAs. Like you have a maximum of 4 times in your life to get to go compete at these things, and being able to really appreciate that opportunity to go and quote play a game in front of a big crowd, to really embrace that and fully enjoy it.
It's a good message. It's something I really agree with. Is that something that you have kept with you since as a coach, you know, with your time at Hofstra and your different time coaching?
Yes, absolutely. I was at Hofstra for those 5 years, and I wish I would have recorded some of Cael's speeches before tournaments when I was in college, but I didn't know I would be coaching. So I tried to redo them my best before some of our big tournaments when I was at Hofstra. And then I did coach for 1 year at Penn while I was down here, just because of a coaching, filling a spot that was needed here. And I tried to pull some of that from there as well. But the whole philosophy that Cael has is something that I've definitely embraced. And I try to teach others it too, as best I can.
So just speaking about your time as a coach at Hofstra, for any, you know, potential, you know, Division I athletes, kids who want to be Division I wrestlers one day, or like parents who maybe they would like for their kid to have a nice wrestling career, what's the one piece of advice you wish potential wrestling recruits would know in your experience as both a college wrestler and a college wrestling coach? What's like, maybe not like the one lesson, but like a lesson that you're like, you just see kids, you know, getting this wrong, and you wish that they would kind of shore it up?
Man. So I guess just realizing that if you want to wrestle Division I at a college, that it's not one of those things that you can just step into and just go with the flow. It requires commitment. It's going to require some sacrifice. It's not, and you see it with guys sometimes in the past that were extremely successful in high school, but maybe didn't really have to work that hard, and things were kind of just given to them. You get to college and they realize that, oh no, I actually have to kind of take some self-accountability here. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that you see. And it's you try to see it when you're recruiting kids and try to get a feel for it, but you don't always know. And I mean, it's heartbreaking when you see it as a coach, when like the kid just doesn't get it. Then why am I not winning all my matches? And why is this hard now? And trying to explain that you're going to have to step it up another level. And I think a lot of kids might be a little naive to that coming out, especially if they're not from, and I mean, I'm a little biased being from the Northeast. If they're not from the Northeast, wrestling, we're very blessed. We have so many opportunities in high level wrestling going on that it becomes pretty serious at a younger age. Whereas some other places it might not be. And that's not true about everywhere, but I've just from experience, you'll get some kids that maybe were 3 or 4 time high school state champ, but they've never really been challenged and they don't really know what they're getting into. And there's nothing, I wouldn't say like to shy away from that. I just think it's something to know, because you see those kids sometimes that come in and then they drop out of school after a year or semester because it's like, this isn't what I signed up for. And so just understanding that. And then on top of that, and the same kind of idea is just realizing, again, referring back to like what I said about Cael and saying that wrestling is a game, it's going to end at some point, and just really prioritizing that degree, especially if you're on scholarship. You have just such a good opportunity to have your schooling somewhat paid for and get a wealth of knowledge in wrestling and experiences in that you'll never lose. But if you don't graduate with a degree, you're really hurting yourself there. And unfortunately, some guys go to school and they joke around and say, my major is wrestling, but someday wrestling is going to end and you're going to have to do something else. Even if you're competing till you're 33 like me, I needed a college degree to apply for the job at Hofstra. And so just realizing the importance of that too, because one day wrestling will end and you have to be prepared for that at some point. And so, yeah, making sure you're really focused on being prepared on really know what you're getting into when you're stepping in Division I room, but also making sure that your main goal is you're graduating with a degree.
Man, I think that's a really fantastic message. Now to pivot, I want to take this chance. I want to take a second to promote some social media that we have and make sure that right now, if everybody could take a chance, if you could subscribe to the podcast, I think we would really appreciate it. Help us grow those numbers. Please check out fanaticwrestling.com. Please make sure you check out all of Dan's products that are on there. And also make sure you check out the Fanatic Wrestling Facebook group, which is growing fast. Dan, I know you're super active in that, which we at the company love, and we think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I just want to
numbers up.
Man, let's get those numbers up. It's a challenge, and wrestlers tend to rise to challenges in my experience. So a couple general questions I just want to ask you. It could be a little bit shorter, just doesn't have to be the best answer, but the first thing to come to, a little bit more of a lightning round thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What's a wrestling lesson you wish you learned earlier? You kind of mentioned hand fighting earlier.
Yeah. Since I said that one, and I did kind of mention, I wish I would have done freestyle when I was
there
younger.
You go. Yeah.
One other one that sticks out, and I always get so jealous of guys at NCAAs that are just killers on top. I never really put the time in on top to be really good. I could ride guys, I could turn guys that weren't that good, but I wanted to be on my feet. And then I watch these guys now, especially with the 4-point near falls in college, getting on the mat and off the mat in like 45 seconds. I'm like, that would have been a lot better way of doing it rather than having to push myself 7 minutes on my feet.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wish I would have spent. I do get jealous of these guys that are just really, really good on top, and that comes from I didn't put the time in on that when I was younger. I just wanted to be on my feet.
There you go. What's on your mind right before a match? Your mat side getting ready. You're about to be called. What's on your mind?
So I would say before a match, man, I'm talking myself up, just positive things in my head, really kind of reaffirming that I know I put the training in, that I know that I can take down anybody in the country or in the world with my high crotch or my single leg, visualizing myself finishing those techniques, and controlling my breathing is also a really big one, just really trying to keep my heart rate at just a low pace and not getting involved in the match going on. I don't know if other wrestlers can relate to this or not, but you start watching the match that you're up after sometimes, and I don't know, it causes you to kind of heart rate increase. And for me, a little bit of anxiety can sink in, especially if it's like one of my teammates. But really trying to really not focus on that match at all and just focusing on preparing myself. Trying to, like I said, let's keep it lighthearted, be able to smile, but really focused in at the same time. And then at the end, just, I always say before I go out into the mat, right as I'm walking out, that, I do, for everybody has their own little thing. I do a little prayer and just say, I'm thankful for the opportunity to compete. So And that's pretty much how I prepare for every match.
I think that's awesome. And I think you make a great point about not getting caught up in the match right before you. And I think that's especially important, like you mentioned, with teammates, like at a duel or something, you know. And I think we see it, like even like at the Division I level, these guys, they want to cheer on their team. Maybe it's a big match, and then we see the guy, you know, by the time his match comes up, he's a little bit more tired than he would be, and he ends up not having the performance maybe he was hoping for. And so I think that's a great point. What's the first move that you remember getting good at?
First move I remember getting good at was the high crotch, and I don't remember who taught it to me. And it had to have been one of my youth coaches. It could have been Ken Rossi, who ended up being my high school coach as well. But I just remember being really, really good at it, and it ended up, I mean, it's still probably my number one move, and guys in college knew that, and guys now know that. But I just remember being in high school, and maybe in even 6th through 8th grade, where we had my teammates, and I was only allowed to shoot high crotches on them, and they couldn't stop me. And so I started to get a little, not arrogant, but pretty confident that I could take people down with it. And so I remember specifically that being a move that I just got really good at when I was younger.
There you go. What is the first thing you think a young wrestler should learn? So like somebody who's maybe before even middle school, maybe a young wrestler comes to you, they're just starting. What's the first thing they should learn?
From a technical aspect, I think positioning is really big. I mean, obviously you want to learn how to have a really good solid stance, just good positioning that it's going to be hard to get to your legs. When I'm just starting out teaching somebody, I'm going to teach them a drop step, teach them a double leg. I'm going to teach them a sprawl. I'm going to teach them a stand up. I'm going to teach them a simple breakdown to a half. I'll teach one thing from each position basically. So from a position based thing, that's that. And there's really any number of ways you can teach fundamentals, I think, to somebody just starting out. But from the more important side of things, I think, is kind of that attitude that I was saying that Cael instills. And I think it's even more important at the youth level, just because you see how many kids burn out, kids that love wrestling when they're kids, and when they get to high school or especially college, they just don't want to do it anymore. They hate doing it. I think it's just really important that they're having fun, enjoying being around their friends, enjoying competing, and just reminding them, hey, it's just a sport. I can go out, sun's going to come up tomorrow no matter what, but really enjoy the time being in the room. I know that some of my best memories and my best friendships are from when I started wrestling in 2nd, 3rd grade. And I mean, our coach would have us over for a barbecue, or just playing games in the wrestling, playing dodgeball in the wrestling room, things like that. I mean, I still remember now, 33 years old. I think it's just important to just fall in love with the sport at a young age rather than feel like you're forced to do it. And if you do that, I think it can pay dividends later down the road. But just really making sure you get that base where you're doing it because you love it and you're curious about it and you want to learn more. And then once you get older and come up through high school and college, where it gets a little bit more serious, and you gotta kind of leverage the fun with the actual hard work. And that's where I think you'll see the most successful wrestlers do that, because they loved it at a young age.
Man, I think that's a great answer. What advice would you give someone who wanted to go from good to great, for whatever that means, whatever level they're at? Maybe they're high school, maybe they're whatever. They feel like they're good, but they're not quite at that level they want to be. How can they get there? So
I have 4 things that I would say if you want to go from good to great, and not in any particular order. The first one,
besides buying Dan Vallimont's Fanatic Wrestling series.
Yeah. I mean, that's number 5 on here, actually. Yeah, you want to make sure you buy all of the Dan Vallimont Fanatic Wrestling DVDs, and buy them for your friends too.
Great Christmas gifts. Never too early to think about it.
Absolutely. But no, the first thing I'm going to say is that you need to be disciplined. Again, a lot of guys can get a long way off of talent alone. And it's where, and again, you see it in college all the time, and sometimes in high school, where that lack of discipline can derail somebody's career. And just really, if you want to be great, there's things that you're going to have to say no to, and there's things that you're going to have to commit to doing. And just understanding that and really prioritizing. If you want to be great, it's going to require discipline in your diet and your sleep and your social life. And it's going to require that. It's sacrifice there. And second thing I would say is it's going to require humility and realizing that you don't know everything and not being afraid to ask and to learn. Especially, I mean, I can just speak from my own career, having Cael Sanderson as my coach. I mean, that's a guy that, I mean, I could ask him questions for days. I could be asking him questions still today, 10 years after graduating, and still be getting knowledge from that guy and his entire staff. So not thinking you know it all, and always being willing to humble yourselves and be willing to learn. And the third thing I would say is believing in yourself. And that comes from putting in the time. If you're disciplined, like I said on the first one, that's going to help to build that mental confidence and that belief in yourself. And I mean, you can train for like your mental preparation and stuff like that, but it's going to require doing that day in and day out. A little bit here, a little bit there. You can't just expect one day to go out, step on the mat and be like, all right, I believe in myself right now. And then you got to train that. And then the final thing is probably the least surprising here is just hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wrestling is hard, and you have to work really, really hard to be really, really good. And just like anything else in life that is worth working for, I wouldn't want it to be easy. If it was easy to be an Olympic champion, it would take away from why people want to do it. And I think those four things, being disciplined, being humble, self-belief, and hard work, those things are, for myself, those are the four things that I really pinpoint on going from good to great.
I think that's a great. Those are four great pieces of advice. Dan, as we're wrapping up here, is I want to give you a chance to plug yourself, to put yourself over here, and mention your social media, mention any like sponsors or products, anything that you want to put across at this time for people to check you out and support you.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Vmont, VMONT 165. I would love if you guys would follow me there. Also on Twitter, my name is just very simple. It's at Dan Vallimont, exactly how my name's spelled, no spaces. And if you want to add me on Facebook, feel great to do that too. I mean, I'd love all the support. And if anybody ever has any questions about, especially if you've watched any of my instructional videos and you have any questions on any of the techniques, or if you need me to clarify anything, I would be happy to help. But if you have any questions on wrestling in general, don't hesitate to reach out over to social media platforms. I'm always willing to help out and try to, help spread knowledge about the sport and help other people find success in it. So, yeah, also don't forget to join the Fanatic Wrestling Facebook group.
Yeah, the Facebook group. We got to get that up, man. And for everybody out there, make sure you visit us at fanaticwrestling.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out Dan's products. We have the Russian Tie Formula. We have Next Level Defensive Fundamentals, and coming soon, Clearing Ties and Creating Action, all from Dan Vallimont. Dan, anything else?
Lastly, I would just say everybody continue to stay safe. Crazy times right now with the virus, but we can control our attitude about it and just focusing on the positives here, and this will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And just just hoping everybody's staying safe and just doing the right things right now, and we'll come out of this better than when we came into it. So just staying positive throughout this.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. I'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. Talk soon.